Welcome to Lofty Pursuits and Public Displays of Confection in Tallahassee, Florida. I'm Greg, and today we're going to make some blueberry image candy. By the way, guys, I will be in a video soon, but Uri's been doing such a good job lately, so let's concentrate on him for a bit. We've already added the flavor to the pot, and the pot's at about 310 degrees, and he's pouring it on our 150-plus-year-old candy cooling table, and that will eventually get the candy down to temperature. But before it does, we need to add the coloring. Uri adds the liquid coloring to the hot sugar, and the hot sugar brings that liquid coloring up to a boil, driving off all the water. Of course, if the water stays in the candy, it will never be truly a hard candy, and it will eventually get sticky. This also has the advantage that it cools off the candy, along with what the table does, and we need to get the candy much cooler to work with it. It's still a liquid, and we need it to become more like clay. Blueberries, like most fruits, have a little bit of citric acid in it. And Uri is going to add the powdered citric acid at this point, and he's going to work it into the candy, and it'll be distributed pretty evenly. Now he only puts it into the part of the candy that becomes white. This is okay, because when the candy dissolves in your mouth, the flavors all combine. It's not like you can taste different parts of the candy in your mouth. Flavor is more of a one-dimensional sensation. Uri cuts the candy into the different component colors and folds them on the table to even out the temperature. But while he does this, let's think about the differences between this and last week's video. Last week we made strawberry. Strawberry is a flavor that dates back to the very beginning of candy making. But blueberry is a relatively recent flavor to work into candy. Natural blueberry, until fairly recently, couldn't be made high temperature enough to end up in candy without burning or changing its flavor to a flavor that was not palatable, or at the very least, not blueberry-like. The technology of flavors have come along tremendously since the 80s and 90s, and now these spectacular blueberry flavors are here. This gave us an opportunity to come up with our own artwork for blueberry, and in this case it's going to be 3 berries and a leaf. Uri has been pulling the sugar on a hook, and by doing this, he's folding in millions of air bubbles, and if you watch, it transitions from an amber color to a white and completely mixes that citric acid into it, very, very evenly. This will not only be our background color, but those little air bubbles, they're going to dissolve faster in your mouth, and this is why this candy tastes so good. It's that pop of flavor. Blueberries can be found in different parts of the world, in the Middle East, in Scandinavia, in parts of Europe, in England, and a lot in North America. It's the North American varieties that became the cultivars that we now farm, and that's been fairly recent. Late 20th century is when blueberries actually made it to market, besides being something that was a wild fruit that was gathered. It was actually a big deal made when they figured out they needed acidic soil. This is why when my father was young, going out blueberry picking in the forest to make a blueberry pie was a big deal because it wasn't something you got out of your garden back then. Uri needs some pulled green to make the leaf, and rather than just pulling the green, he could do that. To make it faster, he combines it with pulled green, and he pulls it like you do when you want to show off. Keep in mind, Uri is a good juggler and competed on the national and international level for yo-yoing. See, he's really quite good. If you search for him, you'll probably find yo-yo videos out there. Heck, I'll include a link in the description of this video. Something I never noticed about blueberries was that at the bottom of a blueberry, there are 5 points, sometimes 6, that are residual from the petals, and they form a perfect star. And this is why the indigenous people of North America referred to these as star fruit, because on every blueberry there's a tiny star. Building the berries themselves is sort of a 3-layered process. We start with a clear rod that represents the dimple, which we now know as a star at the bottom of the berry, but it's going to be too small for us to depict as a star. We then fill in the middle with a light blue color, and then we do a blue wrap around the edge. You may have noticed there aren't a lot of blue foods out there, and all of them get the blue from the same thing, a chemical called anthocyanin. Sometimes this provides a bright blue like in a blueberry, but sometimes it just adds a bluish hint and makes a red purple, or adds darkness to a red. So you'll find them in everything from cherries, to black currants, to black rice, black beans, blue corn, purple corn, Concord grapes, and red cabbages. But you can also find them in berries like blackberries and raspberries. Yeah, there's some blue in raspberries, but we'll get to that in a different video. We're going to need 3 blueberries for this piece of candy, but one of the beautiful things about candy is we can multiply it. Uri made a large enough berry that he can stretch it out and make 3 berries out of his 1 berry. With some white spacers to separate the different colors. Uri is able to separate them enough to keep them round, because if he just pushed them together, he'd make a triangle as the candy would try to flow into each other. With little triangular spacers, the berries are going to hopefully look round by the end of this candy. As he's building the center of the block of candy on the candy heating table, he's keeping the candy off the hottest spots of the table. You see, the candy needs to be colder in the center than the outside, or the image will distort. Balancing where the heat is at any given time in this candy is part of the art, and you can't do this visually. It's all done by touch. And that's why Uri has become a master at this. Lots and lots of practice. He's also been integrating the green leaf into the design, including the spacers for the green leaf. So the image in the center is basically done at this point. Now he wraps his art in the white pulled candy to create a spacer, and then finally wraps that in the dark blue outer wrap. And the design of the candy is complete. And he has 1 25-pound piece of candy. In some circles this might be considered a single serving size, since I've always thought that with fresh blueberries, any container is a single serving size. But we've got to make it a bit smaller. And to do this, he tapers the candy, takes off the end, which we sell in the store, calling it a unicorn dropping, and transfers it to our candy rolling machine, our batch roller. The log of candy becomes rods, and as it gets smaller, it gets cooler too, because it's a greater surface area to the center. That allows these rods of candy to cool down quickly and to become very, very hard. That allows us to make them into bite-sized pieces in the next step. And with that, we have blueberry image candy. If you like this video, please like us here on YouTube, subscribe to us, ring the bell for notifications. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The candy videos and the podcast would not happen without the support of our Patreon subscribers. If you'd like to become a subscriber, you get free candy at the $5 and above level, and you get shout-outs at the $10 and above level in the podcast. If you're ever in Tallahassee, we're right off the Thomasville Road exit of I-10. Come and visit. And thank you for watching.